Hey everyone, Drew and Arts here, back with another video. Today I'm going to be showing you the results of last month's video when I mixed a bunch of random glazes together. I'm also going to be detailing the process of making the fun little things we know as test tiles. So yeah, let's get into the video.
Is anyone else kind of scared?
The first part of testing glazes is making sure they can actually be used as intended and blending the ever-living shit out of them. Here we have our first victim, known simply as Gray. Hopefully, maybe a little bit. Who really knows? I mean, you don't know, but I do. Anyway, this is the final step to ensure these glazes weren't just hard rocks posing as chemicals. Something I constantly run into. Basically, I took an immersion blender and made an absolute mess trying for one last time to make all these chemicals friends. And I did this 8 separate times with 8 separate glazes. And, yeah, some of them turned out a little bit better than others. Once you've turned cottage cheese into thick soup, you can now focus on making test tiles. For the non-ceramic nerds in the room, which I'm sure there's very few of you because why else would you be watching this video, a test tile is a small chunk of clay used as a sacrifice or test to see what a glaze or glaze combos might look like. For my test tiles, I made them using an extruder, which is basically shove clay in, push clay through, and boom! Instant results. Here's a clip of me doing just that. I'm using 2 different clays for my tests. One is a white stoneware, which basically means blank canvas, and the other one is a speckled clay that is my main clay I'm using personally at the moment. Each clay will yield slightly, or very different results between the different glazes. Just kinda does what it does. Once I've extruded my long strips of test tiles, I then cut them up into about 1-inch pieces. I just eyeballed it. In total, I made 32 test tiles. Each glaze has 2 white ones and 2 speckled ones. This is important to note because the way you apply the glaze can change the results. I tested the 2 most common applications, brushing and dipping. Dipping, as the name implies, is simply dipping the test tiles into the glaze. This is technically the purest form of the glaze, as the glaze coats the test tiles evenly. Well, that is if your glaze isn't cottage cheese. Brushing is also, as the name implies, which is using a paintbrush to paint on 3 coats of a glaze. If your glaze is too thin, which believe me, we didn't have that problem, or you didn't do thick enough coats, the glaze can look streaky, which is why dipping is usually preferred. The thickness of the application is what we're testing here. Do these glazes look good dipped and brushed, or just one over the other? So now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the results! Drum roll, please. Anyways, I'm going to go through each color one by one with some commentary of pure science and intellectual thought with titillating tidbits of fun facts. Hello and welcome to the back rooms, where all glaze testing gets done. The first glaze I'd like to talk about today is the one that I guessed would be dark red, and I was pretty right. So this was the bottle that I aptly labeled dark red, assuming that it would turn out that way because most of the glazes inside persisted of this dark red, I think glaze called like fire brick or something. I don't know, it's in the original video. Each test tile has a code under it that explains what is going on. So we have the clay body, how I applied the glaze, and what the glaze is. So DR for dark red. So we have our B mix, which is just a white clay, as I was mentioning. And then we have our speckled clay, which I call my mutt. These were both dipped, and as you can see, due to the thickness of the glaze, there is some air bubbles that were caused when I dipped them in. Usually you don't want that. That just means that my glaze is a little more cottage cheese, as I keep mentioning throughout this video. Both of these results pretty much ended up the same. There's not too much of a difference between them. You can see some slight speckles coming out when applied over the mutant glaze. But other than that, it's pretty much dark red. I also brushed them on, as previously mentioned. So with the brushing, we have our mutant clay or mutt, and we have our B-mix. When brushed on, you can see the speckles a lot more, as it appears, with a thinner application, the speckles are able to shine through easier. And you can see the lines. So that's a big difference between the applications. With this one, you can see that the glaze pooled inside of the lines and covered up the details when dipped. But when brushed on, you can see how the glaze breaks over the different lines. So that's why you test both applications, because you never know how it might turn out. I didn't mention this earlier, but on a scale from 1 to 10, I'm going to rank these on, I guess, how they turned out, how I feel about them, all those sorts of things. For dark red, I'm going to give dark red a good 8 out of 10. It is dark red. It's a kind of cherry red, really, but, semantics, words, whatever. It has a pretty good consistency and nice coverage. And, yeah, kind of reminds me of a tomato. The next glaze I want to highlight was nicknamed Green. And I would say that nickname is almost correct. Here we have our two different lovely examples of green, if you will. Here, again, we have the B-mix. Both of these examples are dipped. If you can tell, the color isn't very green in, I guess, association. I would still more call this a blue. And as you can see as well, when dipped, this glaze is very thick, which is evident by the dripping. Basically, I dipped all of these to right about here, and then due to the gravity of this glaze, she's a little thick, which is a good thing to note because when you're putting it on the side of your piece, that can greatly change if your piece gets stuck to the shelf or not during the firing process, which is big bad for anyone who doesn't know. It's also interesting too with this glaze, I don't know if you can see it, but it has little lines in it, little chattering. That is caused from the glaze itself, assuming, I think that is a result of it being too thick in the cottage cheese category. And you can also see how this glaze pools. So it pooled inside all of the little divots and exposed all of the raised parts. Both of these are pretty much the same in results. You can only really see the speckles when the glaze has pooled into said divots, and on the back, when it's nice and smooth, you can see a little bit of the speckles, but not too much. When this glaze is brushed, it's a lot lighter, as assumed. You can see the speckles a lot more, but it still does pool inside of the little divots. And when brushed, you can see that it does not run or isn't as drippy, given that, we can see a line. You can also see here with this sort of tinted area, that is called off-gassing. And basically during the firing process, all glazes release a little bit of gas, but some of them release enough to actually tint the clay, especially if the clay is naked, which all of these are naked on the bottom. The color is a little bit lighter, and you can see different streaks between it, which isn't my favorite. But hey, she's working on it. If I were to rank this glaze, I think this one is a solid 7. It's not really as I had guessed it. It's more of a blue. It is a pretty blue. It'll be interesting to see if I hydrate this glaze more, if it will be less drippy, because the drips are a little bit concerning depending on the application. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that guy. This next one is one of my personal favorites, as I'm surprised at how it turned out. This one was nicknamed White, though through the realistic circumstances, it was really never going to end up white. But, one girl can dream. This is the results of White. And again, these are both the dips. As you can see, White isn't looking very white. This one, if we remember from the video, had a glaze called the blue splatterware, which added these little dark blue speckles that you're seeing. Obviously, the application is a bit thick when dipping. Most of these glazes were, and all of the speckles kind of ran with the thicker consistency. Usually you want to see them more like little dots. With the details of this glaze, you can see as well that when dipped, it pooled. So it pools inside. Not as much as some of the other ones we've seen, but it does leave, it's going to cover details. Again, with the application, these glazes were a bit thick, so we have some air bubbling there, which it could be fixed if I, dipped them again or something. With our speckled example, you can see that some of the speckles at the top here were able to make it through the glaze. But for the most part, the dark blue speckles that are actually in the glaze are the one that's doing all of the talking. When brushed, the application changes, and I honestly kind of like it a little bit more. So we have the B-Mix example of the brush, and we have the Mutant example of the brush. As you can see, you can clearly make out more details, which is the nice thing about the brushing. It also is more consistent, which is surprising. Usually dipping creates more of a consistent texture. Consistent layer application. Also with this, because it was brushed, you can clearly see the speckles. Oh, balls. Also with this glaze, when it's brushed, you can clearly see the individualized speckles. So they did not run and cause mush like when it was dipped. So you can see the clear difference. The speckles on the mutt clay as well, you can see way better through the glaze. See, look at them. This one is really nice. I would call it kind of a light blue, sort of periwinkle, if I'm remembering colors correctly. And I do love blue splatterware, so I'm kind of biased to all of the dark little speckles. This one I would definitely say lends itself better to brushing. Brushing it is a clear winner over dipping it, in my humble opinion. But again, at the end of the day, it's all aesthetics. So it's up to whether you personally like it or not. It is a very interesting blue-gray, speckly sort of situation. For white, I'm going to give it, honestly, a good 9 out of 10. I don't think anything will really be a 10 out of 10, but I am loving the different variations and the fun little surprises that this glaze brought. The next glaze we'll be talking about is the one that I called pink, assuming that it would be. But given the amount of orange glazes that I added to it, it's not as pink as one would think. Here we have our boy, pink. So both of these examples, again, were dipped. Some of the fun facts about this one is you can see that it is very thick and how it pools. It's also funny to note that these little pink, that like bright pink dot in the front is not a mistake. That's actually just how the glaze turned out. I believe that's caused from some glaze in the bottom of the jar is still very thick. So it came out as a pure chunk of said glaze, whatever it may be. And therefore it was kind of a pure moment and then thusly got melted. You can also see a little bit of some sort of white speckling in this one, right there, about 3 rows down. Again, this one does drip a little bit, not as badly as some of our previous glaze examples, but this one, has a little bit to it. And again, with the application, you can see those little chattering lines, and it's kind of thick, which is just, if I spent more time adding water and rehydrating them. The speckles also get completely lost between the two different glazes. Basically, there is no speckles. I mean, there's no speckles in there. I mean, there's like 2. So that is also kind of a bit of a loss. but it also means it has good coverage. When brushing our good old boy that I now want to name Peach, you can see here that brushing allows for more detail, like we've been establishing with the other ones. I'm going to switch these. That one's a little tilted, though. Don't block my light. When brushed, you can see more of the speckles and also more of the details. It does still pool a little bit towards the bottom, as you can see, a little bit thicker there. The camera might not pick it up as much as I can see it in person. But ultimately, this glaze isn't too bad. It's not one of my favorite colors personally. I'm more of a blue gal. So this sort of peachy pink is definitely one I'm going to scratch my head at finding more of a way to use it than, say, a blue. Not that it's necessarily a bad glaze, it's just not in my personal color category. I think it is, it is pretty. It's pretty. So as for pink, or peach as we really should call it, I'll give it a good 6 out of 10. She is what she is, and she does it the way she does it.
Heyo, Drew from the future here. So I end up calling this glaze black because I genuinely at the time thought that is what I originally called it. Well, looking back at my notes, this was actually supposed to be brown. So everything I say during this entire section about how I thought it was going to be black, but it's really brown, is all a lie. I'm a liar and I'm full of shit. So anyway, just duly note that this is actually supposed to be brown, and yeah. Sorry about that.
With this example, you can also see how badly it drips, given that we have some drip signs there. As for the speckles, well, they get absolutely eaten alive by this glaze. You can't really see it in person, but this glaze, when we originally mixed it, had a lot of this glaze called cosmic tea dust, which has microscopic little sparkles in it. So this glaze is very, very sparkly. It kind of has a slight color shift sort of property when you flick it in the light. The speckles are kind of a blue. So when I'm moving it through the light, you can see the differences. Standing here, you really can't. You can kind of see it more on the darker clay body, as opposed to this one, which just looks like a chocolatey, creamy sort of color. When brushed, they pretty much turned out the exact same minus the dripping. So here they are brushed. The ombre effect is definitely lessened with the brushing as the application isn't as thick, so therefore there's not much of a gradient going on. And it honestly looks a little bit more purpley brushed, which is hard to see and for me to recreate for you on the camera. It looks black on the camera, but I promise you it's a very dark brown. This textile had kind of got bent a little bit, so it has some details in the back. And you can see that with certain raised details, it does break over it. But for the most part, this is a very consistent glaze that has a really good coverage. Obviously, most dark colors have really good coverage. That's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles. Rating her, I would say for all the given results, the cosmic tea dust element adds a little bit of fun and whimsy, giving it a little bit more of a contrast. So I would give this a solid 8 out of 10. I mean, this glaze is going to cover, it's going to do it well. If you need a nice dark color, I've got something for you. These next two glazes I'm about to show you look exactly the same. In fact, I'm not sure if I messed it up or chemistry is just playing a fun little trick on me. Technically, I nicknamed this one Blue, and I definitely got that right. So this is the mutant or mutt example, and this is the B-mix example. Both of these, again, of course, are dipped. What's really nice about this glaze is when it pools, it lightens up. So you can see this sort of lightning kind of effect, this nice lightness to it. Lots of little shiny little bits. It also pooled very clearly on the B-mix. You can see that it pooled perfectly into all of the little divots. With this glaze as well, it is pretty stable as it didn't move too much, but it has a dripping effect. So you can see it's lighter at the top and then darker at the bottom. So it's giving a sort of falsified ombre that I didn't personally try to do myself. It does drip a little bit, you can see on the side, but for the most part, it's pretty stable. And this sort of ombreing is pretty. These two look pretty much the same when brushed. The nice cosmic pooling of them is not as intensified. It kind of grays it or greens it out, depending on your definition of color. And you can see through it a lot easier. It's not as potent when it is brushed versus when it is dipped. The mutant example, on the other hand, looks completely different, as the base, instead of being white, is brown, so it's giving it a lot of more brown texturing. Kind of like a, I don't know, it's reminding me a bit of a turtle shell, which is just a random hole. And again, it doesn't pool as deeply in the divots, and the color is more consistent. Towards the edges, you can see it pooled a bit more, which is giving that ombre that the dip has. Arguably, I would say the dip is more blue, and the brush is a pure, imitation. Like, this is blue. That, these two, they're more brown. As for ranking this glaze, I definitely would need, personally, I would spend more time dipping it than I would brushing it due to these results. I like the ombreing in between them more than I do sort of these blank or more stale canvases. As for our ranking, what should we rank her? 7 out of 10. I think it's doing its job. It's definitely better dipped rather than brushed, just because the thicker consistency gives more of that blue hue. It is pretty, though I don't think you'll catch me brushing it on Mutant anytime soon. Like I mentioned with the good old blue boy we just saw, this one was supposed to be gray. Gray, was a suggestion. It was a guess. And I would say that this boy is not gray at all. Here we have the Mutant example, and then we have the B-Mix example. Are you noticing something? It looks awfully familiar to a glaze that you've seen before. Basically, with whatever we added to it, it turned gray into blue. It also is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us. As you can see, with the dip, that is what the glaze is doing for me. It's doing all of this ombreing, all of this running. That is that. That is not a trick of the eye or me dipping it again. This is just one dip, and it is absolutely killing blue in the category of being blue. When it is more of a thinner application, it's brown, and you can see that through the different lines. And then when it pools, it makes that very, very pretty blue. Both of the results pretty much ended up the same when it comes to dipping. The speckles get lost in the sauce, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's kind of just, hiding the point of using a different clay body. Also, the consistency of this one is way better than some of the previous cats we've seen, because look at that, a nice, good line, and not much dripping on the side, if any at all. When brushed, it ends up somehow, not quite sure how, looking exactly the same. So the dip and the brush, not much has changed here. The ombre effect is lighter, obviously, because when dipping, it's a thicker consistency, but you can still see it clear as day when you turn them around. So this one actually looks the exact same, whether I dipped it or brushed it, which is nice. Consistency is always key. You can see the speckles a bit more when it's brushed, again, thinner coats, and yeah, it's definitely 100% not gray. This, in fact, is more blue than the blue boy. As for ranking this lovely little glaze, I mean, I named it gray, which was a lie, but I won't hold that against it. Chemistry is as chemistry does, whatever the hell it wants. So I'm gonna rank this guy a solid 9 out of 10. I really enjoy this ombre on the back. It doesn't look as pretty when it has to go over details, in my opinion personally, but having that fun, different shades and sliding colors is really what draws me to a glaze, especially one that can do both dipping and brushing. This last one, I genuinely had no idea how it would turn out, so I just aptly named it question mark. And question mark indeed. I may have named another one green, but this one definitely takes the cake. With this question mark of sort of whatever was left in the pot, it's a sort of yellowy green color that then, when pooled, turns into a dark greenish brown. It also allows for the speckles to come through, and again, both of these are the dipped examples. It runs just a little bit, but honestly, 10 out of 10 for running because the other ones are a lot worse. On the back, when it is just pure detail, it does have that sort of chattering effect again. So, bit of a thick application, but we're used to that by now. And it also, when it doesn't have anything to pool into, it's kind of has more of an ombre. You can see the little lines of when it was extruded. It has like some darker spots where it pooled a little bit more versus the clear pooling of the front of these, where it's all just going into the detail. The craziest part about this question mark glaze is that brushing is completely different than glazing. Here we have our two different brushing examples, D-Mix and the Mutant. As you can see with the brushing, as it's lighter, when the glaze is applied lighter, it adds a yellowish brown into where it is less applied, if you will. And you can clearly see this is in fact the best example of the speckles, in my opinion, with this sort of a light greenish yellowish tint. And again, all of these brush examples got 3 coats. So hypothetically, they're all about the same amount. But the results do drastically change. Arguably, the speckles are really making up for this brushing example, as this isn't personally very desirable for me. Not a big fan of it. I would say for ranking question mark, as it was the mystery, was quite surprising. I don't exactly remember all of the things we put in it, but a nice green is a nice green, and I'm not complaining. I'm honestly going to give question mark 7 out of 10. She does what she does, and I wouldn't personally use her for brushing very much, but it's a nice green color.
Well, there you have it, folks. All 8 glazes with 2 to 3 minute long explanations about why they're good and or bad. Because I'm a yapper at nature at heart and everything in between. Anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments which one you loved the most, what was your favorite, and what you want to see me put these on, because we have a lot of options. Plates, bowls, cups, could be anything. As always, this is Drew and Arts, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Oh, and Happy New Year! Yeah.